This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast.
Now tonight, we'll examine 4 new mysteries. Each one has been recreated in detail, wherever possible using the actual participants in the hope that someone watching may know the truth. Join me. You may be able to help solve a mystery. February 19th, 1982. A quiet residential community in the small city of Woonsocket, Rhode Island. On this day 6 years ago, this peaceful New England town of 46,000 was stunned by the most savage murder in its history. At approximately 3:30 p.m., Doug Heath returned from work to his apartment on Providence Street. As he walked through the door, he found his neighbor's 3-year-old child locked out of her mother's apartment.
When I saw Nicole standing on the stairs, I knew immediately something was wrong. Where's Mommy? I asked her where her mother was, and she told me that she was downstairs lying down. I tried the door into the first floor apartment, their apartment, and it was locked. And I knew something was wrong right there.
Doug went down to the laundry room to check on her mother, Susan LAFERTE.
I saw a body leaned up against the dryer. In the same instant, I turned to my left and I saw Sue lying face down in a puddle of blood. It hit me right then and there that the murder or something really bad had happened.
When rescue arrived at the scene along with the first officers, they found that 2 women had been brutally assaulted in the basement area of the Providence Street home, and for all intents and purposes had been left for dead.
Terry, what do you have here?
One woman expired at the scene, and the other one was in very, very critical condition. Rescue stabilized her the best that they could and transported her from the scene to the hospital emergency room.
The 2 victims both lived in the apartment building on Providence Street. 22-year-old Doreen Picard was pronounced dead at the scene. The other woman, 27-year-old Susan LAFERTE, was barely alive. She was immediately rushed to the hospital. Susan was in surgery for 2.5 hours. While she clung to life, her husband Ernie waited and prayed.
The way they described it, she was hanging by a thread. Her injuries were so severe that it was touch and go at the time.
Miraculously, Susan survived, but she remained in a deep coma. Fearful for her safety, the police guarded her room around the clock.
It was obvious to us that the perpetrator, in his mind, had left both girls for dead. We immediately became worried that he would realize that there was a witness to the attack and that he would come back and try to eliminate that witness by killing her. We were hopeful that when she came out of the coma, she would be able to tell us who it was that had done this.
30 days later, Susan finally emerged from her coma, but she had no memory of her attack or her attacker. She developed total amnesia about what happened during the brutal assault in the basement. She'd also sustained injuries that have left her physically disabled. Susan's amnesia sent the investigation of this seemingly motiveless crime back to square one.
Everyone expected me to wake up and tell them who attacked me and killed Doreen. I don't know who attacked us. I have no idea.
Even now, Susan's family is concerned for her safety. and she has requested that she not be identified on camera.
When I woke up out of the coma, I would be able to tell them it's 5 years later, and I'm no closer at this period of time than I was 5 years ago. I don't know what he looked like or anything else about him. I have no memory whatsoever of the attack.
6 years later, the police are still searching for a motive. Susan LAFERTE was a housewife with 2 young children and was an active member of her neighborhood watch. Doreen Picard was studying for a career in childhood development. She lived upstairs in the apartment building that the LAFERTEs owned. Ironically, she was packing to move to a new building on the very day of the attack. Like Susan, Doreen's parents desperately want to find an answer as to who killed their daughter.
We go to bed thinking about her, and we wake up thinking about her. You know, we have to keep pushing and knocking on doors, because I feel like there's somebody out there that has the missing piece to that puzzle.
I have no recollection whatsoever of basically from New Year's Eve to the 19th of February. The 19th totally is a blackout.
On February 19th, the day of the attack, Susan had lunch with her sister, Carol RIVET. At 1:30, 2 friends came to the door.
Hi.
Hi, Don.
My sister came back from the doorway and stuck her head in the parlor and said, Carol, I'm going downstairs. I'll be right back. She came back upstairs and I could hear her talking to somebody in the doorway. So I got up to go see who she was talking to.
Get hints from him. Hi. Yeah. Hi.
I knew one of the guys, but the other guy I didn't know, and she introduced me to him.
And this is the guy that's getting the pickle.
The 2 men then went to the basement to look at some puppies that Susan was selling. Susan talked to the men for 5 minutes, and they left. 10 minutes later, at 1:45, Carol went home. That was the last time anyone saw Susan before the attack. No one can be sure what happened that day between 1:45 and 3:20, when Doug Heath discovered Susan and Doreen's bodies.
Top view between the washer and the dryer.
How you make it out?
All right.
I have to admit that I was shocked by the initial scene. The brutality of the assault. It was not just a murder. It was not just an assault. It was a frenzied attack. It was an overkill.
Okay, 15 lines, okay.
Only one person, apart from Susan, saw the killer. Nicole, Susan's 3-year-old daughter, was in the apartment that afternoon. Her grandmother, Florence LAFERTE, tried to coax the details of the attacker's identity out of Nicole's memory.
As I came in the house, Nicole was there, and from the very beginning, she told me that she let him in. She thought that was her mother's friend.
Hi.
She saw the man. She says he was probably a little bigger than her father. He had a mustache. She even told me that he wore a cap with a visor towards the back. He had sneakers, and he also had jeans. When she heard her mother crying, she went downstairs, and as she was going down, he was coming up. He had a rag in his back pocket. It was red and white. She called it polka dots. And then she was locked out in the hallway while the man escaped through the front.
The killer left his murder weapon, a pipe, in the house as he left. It was not found for 4 days.
After the assault, Nicole was questioned extensively by the police department. As much as the police would like to have a person who definitely saw the perpetrator that day, her story has changed too much to be of real value to us. The stress and confusion that she was under at that point in time really made it very difficult to get a real solid, sure story. It's a complex case because of the different factors involved. First, we have 2 victims. And those victims all bring their individual traits with them. They have their own friends. They were involved in different things. There was also 2 newspaper ads that had been running. One was for puppies for sale, and the other was for an apartment for rent. The perpetrator might have responded to one of the ads, was a friend of either one of the victims or their family, or was just a total stranger.
Since the murder, Doreen's family has conducted their own informal investigation, which they believe has led to a series of anonymous phone calls.
Hello? A few months after Doreen was killed, I received a phone call about 2 a.m. He said that I should be concerned with my family and my children and not pursue the matter so hard. And that for openers, they might burn my garage down, my repair shop. Every time we pursue the matter, we get phone calls. Obviously, we're putting somebody uneasy. We're keeping somebody off guard.
You know, it's like a nightmare because I'm watching over my shoulder all the time. And I'm very fearful for Susan because maybe someday this person's going to realize that, hey, maybe she can remember.
I still hope every morning when I get up that maybe today something will snap and it'll come back. But it's been 5 years and it's still not, I'm no closer now than I was 5 years ago. I'm hurt. I don't look over my shoulder when I do things, but I've always got this back thought, is he still there?
Next, the story of a man who makes his living by getting married over and over. He is known as the Heart Attacker, and so far he has fleeced his many wives of over $1 million. New York City, 1981. Louis Carlucci arrived in the suburb of Forest Hills, carrying nothing but a garment bag with his one good suit in it. In this affluent community, he was a stranger, a man without a past. He found work as a short-order cook in a diner, but no one knew where he came from.
Good evening.
In September 1981, Louis Carlucci met a 41-year-old woman whom we will call Barbara in a neighborhood bar.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
7 weeks later, he married her.
The power vested in me by
What Barbara didn't know is that Louis Carlucci is a con man. He makes his living by stealing women's hearts, and then their money. Carlucci is suspected of marrying at least 9 different wives and fathering over 30 children around the country. He is said to have swindled his victims out of more than $1 million. Louis Carlucci is known as Con Juan, or the Heart Attacker.
When you try to explain to someone what happened, they look at you and say, well, how could you get taken like that? And then you find out there are 500 other people that were taken the same way, who were supposed to be as brilliant or smart.
Barbara was the only one of Carlucci's victims who would talk to us. She asked that she not be identified on camera, and at one time she feared reprisals from Carlucci.
But the fact that he's still roaming someplace in the United States and getting away with this is a terrible thought.
Barbara's telling her story tonight because she wants to warn other women about Louis Carlucci. The police are convinced that Carlucci is perpetrating the same con game on some unsuspecting woman at this very moment. Tonight, we'll see exactly how Carlucci perpetrated his schemes, which the police call marriage swindles. Carlucci usually finds his victims in restaurants and friendship clubs.
Excuse me. Hi.
I was out with a friend, and we were sitting and having a drink, and he sent over drinks, and got to talking.
You know, I was
And that's how we first met.
I come here all the time, and I know for a fact that I've never seen you in here before.
First impression when I first saw him, no style, no class. However, he was warm, very friendly. He had a good sense of humor. So I started dating him. I thought, well, he's a pretty nice guy. He told me he grew up in the Bronx, that he traveled a lot, that he was in the restaurant business, and he wanted to settle down, and that he could give me everything that anybody could really want. And I said, okay, the guy is pretty nice. I like him. I like his company. And I thought, well, why not?
With the power vested in me by the state of New York, I now pronounce you man and wife. You may now kiss the bride.
After a whirlwind courtship lasting only 7 weeks, Barbara married Louis Carlucci in a small ceremony at the bar where they'd first met. Immediately after the wedding, the relationship began to deteriorate.
He kind of jumped on me for talking to other people at the wedding, and he got very angry about the idea, possibly that we even got married.
After the honeymoon, they moved into an unfurnished apartment in New York where they lived out of suitcases. Carlucci would not let Barbara out of his sight and paid for their living expenses with Barbara's credit cards.
The change in his attitude and his personality shocked me, because there were times when he was real nice, and then all of a sudden he'd flip and it would be like black and white. Jekyll and Hyde, I don't know how you want to put it. And then I got scared. I really got scared. Because I realized that aside from the fact that, you know, I didn't have what he thought I had, which was money, the man was very physical.
Ever pull that again?
I couldn't turn my head. He'd pull my hair. If I looked the wrong way, I'd get smacked. Of course, I couldn't talk to anyone at all. I mean, if we were in a restaurant, I couldn't even order anything from the waitress because he felt like I was looking at the person to signal or whatever.
Can I get you some dessert?
No, thank you. Just a check.
Man?
Just the check.
Carlucci continued to put the bite on Barbara. He used her credit cards up to their limit, emptied her bank account, and when they went out together, he always used Barbara's money. Carlucci bled Barbara dry.
I was just held captive, let's put it that way, for about 6 months. Did never let me out of his sight, not one time. I couldn't go to the bathroom without him being there. So I had no way of trying to contact anyone or telling anyone about anything. Caught me with the razor. I was going to cut my wrist because that was the only way I could get out. He knew that I was going to die, whether I did it myself or I would just waste away and die. So his reaction was, well, I may as well let you go because you're going to die.
On May 13th, 1982, almost 6 months after their wedding, Louis Carlucci left Barbara, having squandered all of her savings, a total of $20,000.
Now, as I understand,
Encouraged by her friends, Barbara filed charges with the police.
when Barbara first came to us and gave us information about Carlucci, we started our investigation and began to talking to quite a few people. To speak to these women was an eye-opener for me. Carlucci doesn't just leave physical and financial wreckage behind him. It's kind of a psychological scarring that you see.
And how long was it between the time you were in...
They feel embarrassed and ashamed, and they don't want their relatives and friends and coworkers to know about it.
I would like to see this man get caught. He doesn't belong out in society. And whether he'll hurt anybody very physically, I don't know. But he definitely has to be taken off the streets.
He travels all over. We've had him in California, Las Vegas, New Orleans, Florida, New Jersey, New York State. He moves around quite a bit. He's wanted for bigamy, grand larceny, and fraud. I'd be very surprised if at this moment Carlucci was not with a woman. I'm sure he's been dealing with maybe 10 or 15 women a year, at the very least, because he's not going to stop what he's doing. This is the way he makes his living.
Louis Carlucci has a dubious distinction of being captured twice, thanks to viewers' tips. After we first broadcast Carlucci's story, he was arrested in Nashville, Tennessee. He was extradited back to New York and later released on $1,000 bail pending trial. Once again, Carlucci disappeared. And once again, after we featured him on a second broadcast, a viewer's tip led to his arrest, this time in Los Angeles. In a moment, the story of a quiet church-going housewife who's accused of helping a convicted murderer escape from prison. In 1986, Diane Broadbeck, a 43-year-old housewife, lived in the small Pennsylvania town of Wellsville. She was a devout Christian and had been active in her local church for almost 20 years. On April 5th, 1986, Diane Broadbeck disappeared. A month later, Diane's abandoned car was found in a motel parking lot, 30 minutes from her home. In the trunk, the police found Diane's overnight bag. The same day Diane vanished, John Yount, a long-term inmate at a local prison, escaped. Yount was serving a life sentence for the brutal murder of an 18-year-old schoolgirl. At the exact time that he escaped, Diane Broadbeck was seen just 1/2 mile from the prison, driving along the same country road where John Yount vanished.
I don't know if Diane's alive. I hope she's alive. I really do. I believe, personally, that she is alive, and I think she is with John.
Neither John Yount or Diane Broadbeck have been seen for almost 2 years. The authorities believe Diane may have been Yount's accomplice, and her family is mystified as to why this apparently respectable and happily married woman should have vanished without a word. Was Diane kidnapped by a desperate prisoner, or was she a willing accomplice who helped a convicted murderer escape?
I know my daughter. She would not deliberately help a convicted murderer escape from prison. My daughter would not do this.
Yes, I think that my wife probably did help John Yount get out of jail under pressure. For what reason, I don't know. It's hard to say. She could have been threatened by John Yount. I don't know what happened. I really don't.
Diane Broadbeck and her husband Chester had 2 daughters and had just celebrated their silver wedding anniversary. Diane led a busy life. She had worked as a bank manager, avidly pursued an interest in psychology, and as one of her many community activities, wrote letters to prisoners who had no family or friends. In 1966, John Yount was a popular math teacher at the high school in Du Bois, Pennsylvania. On April 28, 1966, Yount offered a ride to Pamela Sue Reimer, one of his pupils, as she was walking home from school.
Right. Need a ride? No, really, that's okay. I only live right up the road, right up here.
Well, then hop in. I'll give you a ride.
Yeah, that's
no,
okay.
No, I insist. Hop in.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Later that afternoon, Pamela's school books were discovered beside the country road. In the nearby woods, searchers found her body. She had been beaten with a wrench, raped, and her throat had been cut. The next day, John Yount confessed to the murder of Pamela Sue Reimer. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. "16 years later, John began writing to Diane Broadbeck.
Hi, my precious lady. I wanted you to be close to me so much today. I hope my enjoyment and adoration of you is an incentive to be the best you can. You are a classy lady. I miss you and love you, John."
Diane met John through a friend of hers who had been visiting John, and she was no longer able to do it. And Diane had been corresponding with prisoners in other states, and she thought this would be like a continuation of what she had been doing, and it would be a very fulfilling thing for her to do. She was just always thinking of other people. She really was a people person.
After 20 years behind bars, John Yount had become a model prisoner. He played organ for the choir, mastered computer programming, and taught in the prison school.
Around here, it was very easy for him to be liked, and he had a real good manner about him in terms of getting involved with people.
Okay, class, if you would, open your books to page 69, the bottom of the page.
John is a strong-willed person and very persuasive. I believe that he could probably persuade almost anybody, given the right opportunity and given the right time. He has a lot of skill in being able to manipulate people.
Diane began visiting Yount at the local jail and continued to see him even when he was transferred to Rockview Prison, over 2 hours away.
Diane came to see John Yount every week. She never missed. It was regular. It was this week after week. She was his girlfriend, definitely. It was not a casual visit like a brother and sister visiting. When they started their visit, they would embrace and kiss, and the same when they left, which is really all that's permitted during the visit.
I'm fine. I'm always fine when I see you.
You look great.
Diane Broadbeck fell in love with John Yount.
Wonderful when you're here.
I had no idea that they were romantically involved. It appeared to me that they were simply very good friends. She never confided in me if they were romantically involved.
Diane talked about John Yount. I know she was writing him. I know she visited him, but that's about all. It was just a little bit as far as I knew.
John Yount tried repeatedly to appeal his conviction. Finally, the United States Supreme Court denied Yount's request for a retrial. In February 1985, John Yount wrote Diane again.
Be my Valentine, love. Forever. You are my heart. I hope more than anything that this is the last Valentine Day that we will spend apart.
On April 5th, 1986, John Yount escaped. Yount's excellent behavior had earned him the right to work unsupervised outside the prison fence.
All right, John. The morning of the escape, John was to go out and cut some hay.
What all you have to do is take this hay wagon down to the garden barn, and I'll be back in a little bit.
He was told specifically by the supervisor what he was supposed to do, took the other men to their particular areas, and then made his rounds.
That was the last time John Yount was ever seen.
I was on the way up over Richel Hill there, heading for the bowling alley. And I seen this car come down. I just casually looked over, and I thought, that girl looks familiar. Looks like John Yount's girlfriend. So I thought to myself, what is she doing on this road?
That was the last time Diane Broadbeck was ever seen.
Yes, sir. Broderick?
Yes, sir.
I'm Sergeant Decker from the Pennsylvania State Police. This is
Yes.
Trooper Robert Scudder.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to talk to you about John Yount and your wife. Are you familiar with John Yount?
When the troopers came to my door on Sunday, wanting to know where my wife was, saying that Yount had been broken out of prison by someone, or thinking it was her, as far as I was concerned, they were completely wrong. She had nothing to do with it. I thought that she had gone to Williamsburg, Virginia, and I believed that until Monday or Tuesday when she did not return.
The police discovered that Diane had a secret bank account and had withdrawn $7,500 in the weeks just before she disappeared.
We discovered that she also placed a car into a used storage facility, and that car was placed in there within 2 weeks prior to the escape. And we discovered that there was telephone contact with John Yount between she and he at the prison. The night before the escape, there was a 14-minute conversation which occurred. At that point in time, we decided to file charges against her in assisting John Yount.
I do not believe that Diane deliberately helped a convicted murderer escape from prison.
She was a very moral person, and you just did not do certain things. She had a very strong code of ethics, and certainly helping a prisoner escape was not among them.
A month after the escape, Diane's car was found abandoned at a motel just 20 miles from her home. A bag was found in the trunk containing Diane's personal items, jewelry, cosmetics, and over a dozen pairs of underwear.
There is a theory that John used Diane as an instrument of his escape. He discovers that he is not going to get out of the prison system. He has a woman on the outside who can do things for him. She does them. He then kills her. He departs from the scene. He would be gone free and clear. The other theory is that she really loved him, and he really loved her. That theory is one that I hold. I believe she is with him.
Well, if my wife has run off with another man, it's for sure I do not like it, that's for sure, you know. We were married for 25 years, and I thought they were fairly good years, you know, and as I told many people, she didn't leave just me, she left the whole family. I don't think she's alive, because I think if she is, she would contact somebody in the family.
I will never even think that she is dead. I know she's alive. I think of nothing else but my missing daughter, and I want her back.
John Yount murdered a high school girl at one time. He flew off the handle at that time and could do it again. I think she should fear for her life. I think at some point in time, John can kill again.
Update. John Yount and Diane Broadbeck have been captured. Two of our viewers in Boise, Idaho, recognized Broadbeck as a former co-worker, Kathy Kerman.
When they showed the picture, it was Kathy's face, obviously. And once they said she was a bank manager and it was from Massachusetts, and they said that John's background was in computers, it was a dead giveaway.
The Humphreys called the FBI, and after a month-long investigation, the fugitive couple was arrested at their home.
He seemed a little surprised for a minute, then he put his hands up in the air. He didn't look around or anything, really. He just sort of, I think he had his eyes on the guy with the gun.
Next, the mystery of $21 million in gold and silver buried somewhere in Virginia. It has eluded treasure hunters for over a century.
I have deposited in the county of Bedford 5,100 pounds of silver and 2,921 pounds of gold, securely packed in iron pots with iron covers. No difficulty will be had in finding it.
In 1821, Thomas J. Beale wrote of an enormous fortune he buried in the hills of Bedford County, Virginia. According to legend, $21 million in gold, silver, and jewels. For over 100 years, treasure hunters have been combing the countryside looking for Beale's buried hoard. No one has found it.
The amount of gold and silver that was supposed to have been deposited in the two deposits gave me an idea that you'd have to have 2 wagons or more to bury it.
There's pots, iron pots, with silver and gold in them, and coins. And I'm excited about getting down to where it's at.
Well, somebody will get lucky. Somebody will get lucky and find it by mistake, or they'll find it because they've really searched it out and know what they're doing. One way or the other, I think it'll be found.
The legend of Beale's fortune begins in the early 1800s in New Mexico. Thomas Beale and a team of 30 miners dug up gold and silver worth over $21 million at the day's prices. They brought the treasure to Virginia, where Beale buried it. He left written instructions to the location of his fortune in the form of 3 secret codes, or ciphers. Then he went back to New Mexico and disappeared. In 1869, a wealthy Virginian solved one of the 3 ciphers, using the Declaration of Independence as the key. He numbered the first letter of every word in the Declaration of Independence. Then for each number in the cipher, he substituted the corresponding letter. Decoded, the message read,
I have deposited in the county of Bedford in an excavation or vault 6 feet below the surface of the ground 5,100 pounds of silver and 2,900.
Beale then describes the treasure in detail.
Securely packed.
For over 100 years, the other 2 ciphers have remained unsolved. One lists Thomas Beale's associates and heirs, and this one pinpoints the exact location of the treasure. Whoever decodes it may find Beale's fortune stored in a secret vault roughly the size of 2 Rolls Royces. In this next mystery, we'll join several treasure hunters, some of whom say they have broken the cipher. They are convinced that sooner or later, someone will strike it rich.
2 brothers, Eddie and Joe Toney, and their father-in-law, Earl Boggs, have spent 9 years searching for the treasure. They say they have broken the cipher, and that the message tells of 5 geographical points where 167 years ago, Thomas Beale left the clues, which one by one will lead to his fortune. The Toney brothers are currently looking for the 5th and final point, which is the clue that will lead them to the vault.
We only have one more point to go, and we've verified each place. We found something that he left. And degrees and the footage and paces came out exactly. If we can't find this 5th point, after finding 4, there's something bad wrong. I'm confident that we'll find it.
The Toney brothers believe this 19th century carriage rod is the 5th clue in their search. They think that it was purposefully buried by Beale, pointing in the direction of his secret vault.
We know what the last degree is to go. I'm a little shaky right now on account of it because I know there's not enough time today to go do it.
Well, when the metal detector went off, I got excited, and it's hard to explain how exciting you do get. And you imagine a gold down in there behind them rocks, and my heart felt like it come up in my throat.
Meanwhile, miles away in a completely different section of Bedford County, Wilbur Swift from Garden Grove, California, is also searching. He believes that he, too, has broken the cipher, and has spent the last year and $20,000 trying to find the Beale treasure.
I'm a computer programmer to start with, so on my own personal computer, I decided to try to decipher this. In about 8 months' time, I was able to break the code. And it told me about a specific type of rock that I was looking for, and I happened to locate that specific type of rock, and there it is right there. It has a face on it, and it has a head on it. This is what the deciphered code told me to look for. And then I said, okay, the treasure has to be underneath it because it said that's where it was supposed to be.
Wilbur hired a local contractor, Ken Dooley, to help him excavate under the rock.
I have lived in Bedford County all of my life, and over the past 25 years, I have dug this treasure up here for about 20, 25 people. Most of them knew exactly where it was, and when talking to them, it'd be so uptight they just couldn't hardly breathe, really. And when you start digging for them, there was always just 2 feet away from it. I don't care how deep in the ground you went, it was 2 feet deeper than what you dug.
The target was pre-measured at 26 feet, and we're down right now at about 24 feet, so we don't have too much farther to go. Now that we've found the rock, and we've done some extensive testing, by the way, and we're sure that we're getting the treasure out of there.
I've been native here for 50 years, born and raised here. They've searched and searched, and I haven't seen anybody come up with anything yet.
Bedford County's local residents have seen diggers come and diggers go, empty-handed. They're not convinced there really is a treasure.
It may be here. I may be sitting on it. I've got some land in Texas nowhere. It may be on my spread. I don't know. I hope it is.
I think it's an outside possibility. It might be a treasure somewhere yet, but I don't think they're not believe enough in it to go up and start digging.
They think they can break that code. Maybe they can. I hope them good luck. But personally, I just don't believe it's here.
How are we doing, Carl? Oh, we're doing very well. I'm down to the 19th line.
Could the Beale ciphers be a hoax? A computer pioneer, Dr. Carl Hammer, has spent 30 years studying Beale's numbers to determine if there truly is a coded message. As part of his investigation, he attempted to recreate the conditions under which Beale wrote the cipher in his computer lab.
My aim was to find out whether the ciphers are real or whether they're a hoax. Hoax means these are random numbers, they're doodles. And so I started to analyze those numbers. And I discovered that there were some very distinguishable patterns, and they were, in fact, not random numbers, they were not doodles, but they contained information. We don't know what the information is, but they are a legitimate set of cryptographic numbers. And that is all that is known to this date.
Even though he has lost his job, is now living in a nearby motel room, Wilbur Swift is still digging at the bottom of his 25-foot shaft. So far, he has found nothing.
My wife is back in California, and some of the neighbors say, hey, where's Wilbur? And I don't think any of them take it serious. Well, he who laughs last, laughs best. And I believe that one of these days I might get the last laugh.
The Toney brothers believe they will have the last laugh. They still haven't found the treasure, but they do believe they have located the final clue. While we were filming, they had to return home after running out of money, but they will be back.
The facts that we've got, I know it's not a hoax. You know, I'm convinced that it's not. It's been there 160-some years, supposedly, and it's going to be there until it's found.
In spite of all the computer programs, historical research, digging, and searching, Thomas Beale's secret vault, if it exists, remains intact.
The residents of Bedford County have played host to treasure seekers for nearly a century and have asked us to remind everyone that unauthorized digging is against the law. Tonight we've examined 4 mysteries, and at the heart of each is a secret kept hidden by amnesia, by a con game, by a prison escape, and by a code. Perhaps someone, somewhere can unlock these secrets. Perhaps that someone was watching. Perhaps it's you.